right? Thank you. And this, by the way, is how you avoid yourself getting lost. Do you want to share your story so we can put it in context?
What we found is that I went into trance, and it seemed to be a very deep trance. And there were I was visualizing very well. It was fairly brilliant visualization, and there were loads and loads of symbols, but they didn't seem to lead anywhere.
Beautiful. So,
except that he did cut his hand. I caused him to cut his hand, but
that's fine. We'll talk about that in a moment. So when people find symbols, and this is back to Philip's point a moment ago, these symbols are purposely, to a certain degree, veiled because the intellect isn't quite ready to handle it yet, to some extent. So you have to push the meaning. In the same way as you push people to get the symbols in the first place, you've got to use this, the implication of meaning, to get something out of it. So you notice, for example, the first defense strategy that Robert had, I hope you don't mind talking about this, was we had a box. So the message was locked away inside the box. So there's the first defense. What was the second defense? He couldn't read it, right? It was folded. So then you find a symbol to be able to decode the symbol. So if you get stuck on one symbol, you find something else which applies to that symbol. So you don't just keep looking for more symbols. You look for a symbol that's going to help you resolve that symbol. Now, sometimes you end up finding a better symbol and you end up forgetting the first one. There's more energy, more juice in that one, so you run with that one instead. So you see how you have to get a real sense of where the person's at and then decide, is this a better one? We'll stick with it. Or is it something that I can apply to the first one? Like, what was the symbol that resolved our symbol in this case? The magnifying glass, right? Now, I took a small risk as a hypnotherapist and said, okay, apply it and see what happens. And he got the message, right? I limited it to a certain extent to say, like, you're going to see one word at a time, so read it one word at a time. And he got the message. Now, if that hadn't worked, do you know what I'd have done? Find another symbol. But each time, rather than implying failures, like, oh my God, I don't know what to do here, what you do is you imply meaning out of the fact that they can't make sense of the symbol. So what might I have said had the lens not worked to reveal the words? Anything? Anyone? How about this? So you've got the lens. The lens was waiting for you, and it really wasn't to read those words. It means something different. Only you don't know what it is yet, do you? It means something, and it's really important. Only you don't know what it means yet. You're on the verge, and you know you're close, but you don't know. By the way, do you notice how I'm actually emphasizing it? I'm not just saying it once or twice or 3 times. I'm really going for it. I'm not letting go of it. I'm building it up. Why? Because it's building response potential inside him. And at that point, when I have enough response potential, I know something's going to give. It's like either the writing will shift, or it'll turn into a picture, or a voice will come, or a person will be there. I can create some of these things, or I can offer an opportunity for them to be created, or they'll happen spontaneously. It doesn't really matter. The point is, unless you make the meaning, the symbol, pregnant with meaning, and the meaning being on the verge of consciousness, you're going to get stuck. You're going to run in circles because they'll keep giving you other stuff that you don't need. Does that make sense? So this is where you do, remember we talked on the bonus day about to get a catalepsy, you've got to be really insistent sometimes and poke them and prod them and whatever it is. Well, you're doing the intellectual equivalent here to make sure that the symbol actually means something and you know it. Right? Now, sometimes what ends up happening is there's a resolution. It's like, I don't know what happened, but I feel really good. In which case, your job's still done. So your conscious goes, okay, I guess this hypnotist guy is not going away, so let's make the problem go away and maybe he'll leave me alone now. Right? That's happened to me several times. So the keys you're looking for is some kind of insight, so the meaning pops out, either in a meaningful way, or sometimes what will happen is actually reasonably common as well, is they'll go, something happened, it feels really meaningful, but I can't quite say what it is. Right? It's like that tip of the tongue phenomenon. And I'll accept that too. At that point, what I'm looking for is affect, emotion. How do you feel about that? Oh, I feel great. Great. If they go, oh, I feel pretty good. Am I there? If they go, woohoo. Am I there? No. I'm looking for a genuine emotion. I'm looking for a release of some sort, or an emotion that tends to accompany inside or release in some way. So your example was perfect. Laughing, and I will check when you're laughing that the root of that, there's not a tension, but there's a release, which I think there was from what you said before. I know I'm done at that point. Then just be sure, I'll emphasize that message. Do you notice how, again, I emphasize the idea of emotion over and over again? So you're sitting there feeling very good. Those symbols were waiting for you. That box with a letter and a lens were there, and they're waiting for you, and they've done their job now. You feel very good. You're feeling very good, and those things have done their job. How do you feel about that? Really good. Great. You feel really good. Now let me ask you, do you feel complete, or is there something that's missing? Because sometimes you only have a part of what needs to happen, and you need to build on it, and sometimes you don't. Does that give you a sense of what I'm talking about? What I'm really saying right now, I hope it's still here. What I'm really saying is, you're now maturing the concept of H+, whereas yesterday, we talked about H+ in terms of intense, inside to hypnotize, and do something positive. Anything will do. Now we're not going to accept anything. It's going to be positive, but they've come with something specific in mind, right? Well, it's got to be positive in that direction. Now, do I know yet whether or not Robert's actually going to pass the kidney stone better? No. I don't actually know what has happened. I don't know if it's healed. I don't know if it's already passed. I don't know if it's just about pain control or about something else. But all I know is that he's happy and that whatever he needed to get out of it has come out of it. Is that fair to say? And the rest? So he feels like he needs to know what he knows what he needs to do to pass it now. I don't need to know anything else. And do you see the congruence in that? Right? That's what I'm looking for. That's what gives me my purpose. And everything I do inside that is my H+ is how does this relate to the kidney stone? Even if I don't find out, how does this relate to the kidney stone and the passing of it? How does this do it? And I'm not asking him, so how does that relate? Because if I ask him, he's going to give me an intellectual answer. That's a conscious answer. Even in trance, the conscious mind will try and fill in gaps. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to imply the meaning until it comes spontaneously, it pops out of nowhere. I'm going to imply the meaning until the meaning pops into consciousness spontaneously.
That sounds contradictory, because if you're implying it.
Okay, let me put it this way. I'm going to imply something meaningful until the meaning pops into consciousness. I don't know what the meaning is yet. How could I know? It's not my symbol. It's not my unconscious, it's his. Right? So my job is to kind of build the pressure in the pressure cooker until something gives and the meaning comes out. Does that make sense to you guys? It should match quite a significant number of experiences you've actually had. Would that be fair to say? It also should give you a roadmap of what to do when you don't get there. So having an awkward client is actually a useful thing because you learn your maneuvers. These are your key maneuvers. By the way, what are these maneuvers doing? Any ideas? There's only one thing they're doing.
Building pressure.
They are building pressure, but how specifically?
Intensifying it.
What these things are doing is they're directing attention. You're using, remember, where attention goes, energy flows. So pressure is just putting a lot of energy on one spot. So you're putting a lot of attention on the things until something, and if it doesn't work from this direction, you'll go from this direction. It didn't work with the parchment and trying to read it. It didn't work. So I need to put something else. So I misdirected his conscious mind. There's another symbol. And then quickly readjusted it so the pressure started coming right back again, and at that point it popped. If that hadn't been it, I'd have said, look over there, that's going to help you. What is that? Oh, there's a window. Right? Notice I don't just say, look, what's over there, or what in this room can help you. I say, what's over there? I'm already assuming that it's there. Look over there. What is that? It's going to help you. Rather than, can that help you? Did you see the difference? So whatever symbol comes out, because the unconscious is already presenting the symbol, I've set the parameters, it's going to help. Go ahead.
So when you have a bunch of symbols, are you choosing the one that seems most plausible? Are they all basically equal in terms of
It depends.
utility?
I'd like to choose one which seems to, from your reaction, to be more significant, and I'll focus on that. And if that doesn't work, I'll somehow bring the others in. I mean, for example, do you mind if we use your example? So give me some of the symbols that came up in your thing.
Well, I started the countdown from inside a large bird cage.
Where did you end? That's where we need to be. Where did you end after the 10 to 1?
Ended up in a basement sort of thing.
In the basement. So you're in the basement.
Right.
And then what?
With a bird cage and a manhole cover.
So there's a bird cage and a manhole cover.
Yes.
Interesting. So you have a symbol of a bird cage and a manhole cover in this sort of underground space.
Yes.
And you really don't know what they mean, do you?
No.
They obviously have meaning. And they're important because your unconscious mind selected those symbols for you. Your unconscious mind, think about this, your unconscious mind, that's right, selected those symbols for you. And they have an important meaning, an important message in relation to whatever problem you were talking about. Only you don't know what it is yet, do you?
No, but I'm suddenly thinking about...
Yes, you are, aren't you? Keep thinking about that. There you go. And you don't have to tell anyone what those thoughts are about, because those thoughts are for you. All you need to know is that that cage and that manhole cover were there for you, and now you know why, don't you? That's
Yes.
right. Just take your time and let that settle in. Go ahead.
As a person that did his induction, though, I'm more confused now than I was before.
I just did this. So ask a specific question and I'll see if I can answer it.
Okay, so if I can go back into the scenario that we were at.
Don't address me, let him do what he's doing.
Okay.
Let him finish what he's doing. Just address me for this. Go ahead.
Okay, so I had him, I can use him as example the way we were, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so when we got down to the bottom, we saw the manhole cover and we saw the bird cage.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, I said, okay, where are they in proximity? So he said there are bird cages on one side.
Okay.
I said, well, look around, do you see anything else? And
Okay, may I pause you there? That's where you lost the pressure. You had the symbols, and rather than building the pressure, you redirected his attention somewhere else. You're basically saying, those symbols aren't good enough. You have the symbols there, and you're saying, look somewhere else before exploring them. So the implication is, those symbols aren't good enough. So you're getting in your own way because you're creating a context in which you can't get the meaning. Now,
because we found a diamond from there, then we found crystals.
exactly, and that's going to keep on going ad infinitum
I see.
until you peg him down. Now, notice what I did. And I'm not saying in terms of like, hey, look at me, I'm so good. That's what I mean. In terms of just the behavior, I took the symbols that were there, and I forced as much meaning onto them as I possibly could, with implication, with tonality, with repetition. Did you hear me do the echo effect? Anyone hear me do the echo effect?
Yeah.
Anyone hear me use implication? Did I imply meaning? Did I keep running through these things over and over and over again? And just to ask in terms of experience, please don't tell us anything about what you actually did. Just in terms of experience, did you feel a certain pressure building up? Yeah? And then that suddenly released at the point when you realized what this is all about, right?
That's right.
And that's what we're doing here. This is a great example, and thank you too for allowing me to do this, because the magic of what you're doing is, it's not in a technique, it's not in like, in step 4, find the 5th symbol, and the 5th symbol will always be magical. No. The magic is, when you get presented by something by the unconscious, you need to realize it's real. And it's hidden at the same time. And it's going to try and bamboozle you because that's part of what it does. And your job is to crack the shell and allow it to come out. And the way you do it is this. You use the echo effect to nail the symbol down and use implied meaning. The cage and the thing are there, and you don't know what they mean. That's a truism. And yet, can you hear the implication that they obviously mean something, and you're so close? You don't know what they mean, but they're there, and they're waiting for you. And they're waiting for you, and only for you. They're not there for me. They're there for you, and they have something really specific. Only you don't know what it is yet. Do you see how I'm really going for this? I'm using, to use your metaphor if I may, my H plus is on fire because I know the minute I hear those two things and they're so clear, I know that something is coming out of this. I know that they're there for a reason, and I've got to convey that conviction to his conscious mind, because that's the bit that's getting in the way of the meaning, and I'm actually overloading whatever's left of his critical factor. That's going like, I don't know what these things mean. I've overloaded it with the pressure until you saw the release going on there, right? This, by the way, is how you do it conversationally. We just did it then.
There was something that you said, Igor, you continue when you said something about your subconscious knows that, because if it didn't, or something to the extent that if those weren't the symbols, they wouldn't have been there.
Yep.
Okay, so that was more additional pressure.
More pressure.
Could you say that again, exactly what you said? So
I have no idea exactly what I said, but the essence of what you said is true. Your unconscious chose these symbols. They're there. You can see them, and you know they have meaning. Only you have no idea what that is. Your unconscious obviously does, because it selected them just for you. They're there just for you.
So the conscious selected the symbols.
No, the unconscious.
The unconscious, okay.
Because he didn't choose them. Did you choose a symbol, or were they just there? That's my sign that this is what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Right? Is this starting to make sense to you guys? I don't want to belabor a point that's not necessary. Go ahead.
A way that I just figured out that I'm coming to understand all this is, in the past when I dream, I frequently, if I remember a dream, I spend hours or days afterward trying to figure out what it meant, all the symbols in it, right? Occasionally, I'll have a dream where in the dream, the meaning is clear to me. The realization I just had through the experience I just had and through what you're saying is that the role of a hypnotherapist, at least in this context we're talking about, is to serve as sort of a guide, a wilderness guide, as it were.
Yes.
To help somebody figure out what those symbols are and what the meaning of those symbols are within the dream. And it hit me because I realized, as I think back about what I experienced 10 minutes ago, it's like a dream. It's like I've had all these dreams over the last couple of days, but I know what they all mean.
Where do you think I got this from?
And it's because somebody else has helped me analyze the dream during the dream.
Exactly. That's exactly what you're doing, right? And the difference here is, the only difference here is that we're putting the pressure on, if like almost artificially, to get that resolution, that intensity to come out, and we're not kind of like allowing it to wander off, because the key thing is, as you saw here, it's a really elegant example, the unconscious mind will try and misdirect. And your job is to redirect back to where you want it to be, and you use attention as your fuel. You use these mechanisms as the tools that get you there, and then you create a point where the meaning can come out. Now, the key thing here, guys, by the way, I'm not looking just for people to understand what it means. I'm looking for a physical release. If he has insight without some kind of emotional experience to go with it, I'm not done yet. Does that make sense? Now, did you all see, is it Scott, sorry. Did you all see Scott shift? That's how I knew that it's already taken. Has anyone got any clue what happened inside there? I don't. You do. I don't. But we knew that something had happened. And would I be correct in assuming that you feel more complete like that? It's like, all right, that's where I need to be, right? By the way, one of the reasons I could do that so quickly is because Rashid actually did the work for me. I just finished it up. I just put that tail end. You actually had all the pieces there. All I had to do is just put them out of the pot and put them on a plate and serve it. That's all I was doing. There's a guy here. 1 second. Go ahead.
My question was, I was kind of concerned because you were talking about you put kind of pressure on him. As long as he's in a trance, but you don't know that, how do you know you said the symbols have meaning as long as they're there. If you're not putting pressure on the symbols before he tells you.
Sorry, I'm not quite.
I'm kind of confused. Well, you said you put pressure on him right there, and then he knew what the meaning was. And I know that you said that the way you could tell was the emotional release. But how do you know if you're not, like, say, how do you know they're not, like, maybe they slipped out of trance and their conscious mind just gave you something?
Well, you do that by the physiology.
To look for the...
If they're just saying, oh yeah, I know what it is now, I'm not convinced. But you notice how he had this like moment like, whoa, what just happened there? Did you see that? That's what I'm looking for, and that's what I amplify. What I'll do after that, by the way, is, how do you feel right now?
A lot more relaxed.
A lot more relaxed. So you are feeling a lot more relaxed, right? You're feeling a lot more relaxed as a result of having had the insight of whatever that happened, right?
Yes.
And those symbols did mean something to you, didn't they?
Yes.
And now you feel a lot more relaxed, right? So now what I'm doing is I'm cementing the change in with the echo effect. I'm using the result of what he got, and I'm just putting more attention to it so that he realizes, that he also realizes that this was a big thing, right? So that's how you can tell it's not a conscious thing. If it's a conscious thing, it sounds totally different, and you'll probably get a sense of like, this guy is just trying to get off the hook, right? At which point, and it'll happen from time to time, by the way. And if they're just trying to get off the hook, then you can actually call them and say, you know, you think you know what this means, this symbol is. And you might even be right. But really look at it. Really look at it. Do you see what's going on right now? I've taken your attention right back in again. And that's what you're looking for. That's a great question. One moment, there's someone over here waiting. Go ahead. Could someone bring a microphone over here as well?
So I went under, and I was, going along what I thought was a personal path, and went through my own personal, wonderful utopia. And
Great.
at the end of it, I got to this place where I reached up in a cupboard and I pulled down a can, cocoa can, and opened, and I don't drink cocoa, and I was like lost, what does this mean? I opened it, and there was a roll of bills in it, money. I thought, oh, money, I'm going to get money.
Not bad.
This is good. And then I was relaying it back to the person who induced the trance, and I said, it's money, it's paper money, it's American American denomination, and she said, she was echoing back to me, and what she said, I don't know, I don't think she heard me. She said, it's the last domination. And I had this profound, like, aha, and actually it brought me to tears. It's like, that's way better than money.
Actually, here's an interesting thing. She may have misheard you and actually did you a favor in doing so.
Oh, that's exactly how I recognized it. It brought me to tears. I had a totally emotional aha.
That's it.
It was like, I may not have, but this is the truth. This is my truth.
That's exactly right. And do you notice, by the way, everyone, the correlation between what your experience was, and who are you working with? And your... You notice how all these three experiences have something similar. This is a pun, a play on words, right? And notice how the symbol is perfect. It's pregnant with meaning, because on the one sense it's money, and on the same time it means the last domination to you as well. So it has both things in one. Do you see how efficient the unconscious mind is? I get blown away by some of the things that come out. I'm serious, I get blown away by it. Because if you ask me to sit down and work that sort of stuff out, there's no way. Seriously, there's no way I can work out something as elegant and sophisticated as that in terms of symbols that has other meanings and other layers in it. Just can't do it. Luckily, I have an unconscious that can help me with that job. But do you see where I'm going with this? Thank you for sharing that. It's a great thing. We had over here. Go ahead.
I have a couple of things. One is
on?
you had mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
On. One, you mentioned cementing the situation. What do you mean by that?
I'm not sure what context that would in. I'm guessing that it's in terms of what he was saying earlier on, if someone's trying to distract themselves away from it, you redirected all the energy back at the symbol, as we did here, over and over and over again until you get it. Now, once there's a resolution, once there's an insight, the second level that can happen is they may have an insight but forget that it was actually significant. There's a habit that we have as conscious beings of ignoring the significance of unconscious insight. It's like, whatever, it's just there. Because it feels so natural, right? And to prevent that, to cement the relationship with the unconscious, I'm looking for an emotional response to that, and I'm going to augment that by the echo effect, by feeding it back, so that they realize not only that they've had something significant, but also it's important. Much like with Gary, who was going like, I laugh, but it's silly, and he's trying to brush it off. But really, do you realize, Gary, that was a significant thing that happened to you? Oh, absolutely. And it's an important thing.
What made it funny to me was that stop winding from all the people who always used to tell her.
So now we have another symbol that's pregnant with meaning, with multiple layers, all being. I mean, think about how genius. Think about the genius that's required to create one simple symbol that means so many different things at once and can give you the emotional release that you did have. I mean, think about it. Doesn't that blow you away? It blows me the hell away.
And you're just, as the hypnotherapist, you're actually the facilitator of maybe extracting those
Yes.
symbols.
All
But
you are.
who's the interpreter? Is it
Him. I can't interpret
okay,
anything.
That's
My
because
job
that's his conscience.
is to help him find symbols, and when he finds the symbols, is to keep putting energy onto that, putting attention onto it from one direction, another direction, until there's a burst of insight, until the symbol pops and all those layers of meanings come out, and there's a sudden rush. You felt it just now. We saw him happen. You described it very elegantly, Shay. It's just. I have to say, I'm lost for words sometimes with what can actually come out of this. And remember, guys, you're not even doing therapy yet. You realize this, right?
Exactly.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I found a bit challenging is not knowing when to stop rocking, or perhaps how much pressure to put on someone's shoulder. Because sometimes when they're pressing down on my shoulder, I'm like, oh my God, this person's going to break my shoulder.
Right.
Or if I'm rocking somebody, I don't know when to stop and when to pick back up.
If you go to the whole H+ thing, if you get a sense of like, maybe I'm doing too much of it, just slow down or do less of it. And if it feels like, there's something wrong with this, then pick it up again. Chances are, if you're thinking I'm doing too much, you may well be, in which case just listen to the signal, see if it feels better not doing it, and if it doesn't, then you go back to doing it. So then over time you distinguish between what is a critical factor like a doubt coming in versus a true intuition that says like, okay, I get a sense that this person's losing a little bit of it because I'm doing too much. And there's a distinction in the feeling. You'll get them confused from time to time, I still do. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes to recognize which one's which, and you basically just have to trust your instinct.
Okay, so then there's no specific point as to when you should stop and when you should pick back up?
From this point
or?
onwards, there'll be no more specific points ever.
Okay.
I can promise you that. But it's a good question. It's just, it's impossible to give an answer to that, and if I did, it would be wrong, right? I think, go ahead.
One question I have is when you're pressing for the meaningfulness of the symbols, is it always necessary for that meaningfulness to come out in consciousness?
No,
or would you just allow for an unconscious resolution entirely of the whole thing
Happens often.
and never
It happens often. But what I am looking for is a shift, right? So you may have noticed with Robert, just to use as an example because he was here, I would be quite happy for him to not be able to read what's going on there, but still know that something important has happened. It just happened that he could actually read the words in the end. But I'd be quite happy for him to say, I still have no idea what those words are, but I feel really good. I feel like something's happened. And do you know what I say at that point? That's right. Something really has happened, hasn't it? And you have no idea what it is. Something's happened and you have no idea what it is, but you know it feels good, don't you? Yes. And then I'm just going to layer that one on so thick because that is the work. You're done. You've done double secret therapy. It's like a double agent, right? Double O. You know, that's 07 because he knows but I don't. That's 007 because he doesn't know and I don't know, but the unconscious does. We'll call that James Bond therapy, right? We'll do a whole new program on how to do James Bond therapy. No one knows what's going on, but everyone feels better. There's something over here. Was it you? There you go.
Again, I don't want to belay this point, but this I feel is the first time that I've actually been, like really clueless on this. I think I'm getting it, but I just want to make sure.
And by the way, let me just say, this is going to be a state you'll be in for the next 3 days. Okay. Seriously, it's just getting very weird tomorrow. I just want to warn you right now. As long as you know what the next exercise is, that's all that matters. I'm just reminding you. But please carry on.
Yeah, I'm afraid that if I don't get this exercise, I'm
okay.
really confused on the next one.
I'll take all questions. Don't worry. I'll handle them quite happily. I'm just getting you to anticipate the fact that this will be more the norm than the exception.
Well, having gone through this session with Scott, the question that I have now is that at what point, you mentioned something about the symbols, and if you may find a stronger symbol, at what point do you decide that this symbol isn't going to work and then going on? Because obviously I found like 5 different symbols, but I probably didn't need the last 3.
Sure.
So
My assumption is that the first one is the one.
okay.
And then I'll work that one as much as I can. If it doesn't seem to be working, for example, with, you know, there's a couple of evasion tactics. In the first evasion tactic was there's something in the track, but it's locked, right? So you could have, for example, not been able to open it, so I had to find my key. So I said, oh, look over there, that's the key over there, go and open it. Okay, the key breaks off. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. You need to have something special. So look in the cupboard over there, that's what you need to open it up. What is it? Oh, it's a crowbar. Great. Wrench it up. What's inside? Okay, it's a piece of paper, right? Open it up. What's on there? Well, it's writing, but I can't read it. That's the second evasion. There's another evasion, right? So now I have to go work through that evasion. Now, at some point, if nothing's happening, it's like if the symbol feels dead because of that, I'll bring in something else to apply onto it. Now, let's say that you know, we got into the case and the letter's there, but he can't read it, and we say, okay, something's over there that'll help you. What is that? Oh, it's a magnifying glass, right? But let's say he really lights up when he sees the magnifying glass, right? Now, I have a symbol which has obviously got more energy in it than the others because he's lighting up, right? And it's not, I'm not talking to you now because this is a different experience, but I'm just using this as for instance. This is where everything you did yesterday in terms of observational skills, everything you did today in terms of observational skills starts being more important than the language and everything else. And this, incidentally, is why conversational hypnosis is not about the language. The language absolutely matters, but if you haven't got it in a context, it's useless. And this teaches you that context. Because otherwise, how do you know when something's taken? How do you know when something's hit? How do you know when you're done or not? You've got to see it, or you've got to hear it, or you've got to experience it in some way. So in this case, if I see the magnifying glass having more energy, I'll put more attention onto it. Now, he may end up bringing it back to the letter later on. It's happened. There's often the circularity in what you do, right? But I'm going to go with where the energy is. So he's like lighting up with the, and I would say something like, you know, and that magnifying glass really is important, isn't it? And you really know it. Much more so than anything else you've experienced so far. It's been waiting for you, and you really have to work to find it. He goes, yes. And you really don't know what it means, yes, do you? No. But it's important. Much more important than anything you've experienced so far. Yes. It's all true. And now I'm putting the pressure on the magnifying glass, and maybe that'll pop the meaning, and then that'll translate onto the others, or maybe it doesn't. I don't care, because the magnifying glass now becomes the thing that will resolve whatever he came here to resolve in the first place.
So you keep on saying, you know, and that's the persistence, but can you now tune it in and say your subconscious, like you mentioned about the symbols would not have been important were it not for the fact that your subconscious picked it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Then you said, but you don't know yet. Is that when you're supposed to say, but your consciousness doesn't know it yet, or does it not make any difference to mention that? Because
I don't want to make too much of a distinction between that. You could, I guess, but I don't want to split the conscious and the conscious too far apart, because we're trying to bring people together rather than more apart. So I don't want to imply that there's a conflict going on. What I want to imply is that they've got the tip of the tongue phenomenon, where something important is about to happen, but they're not going to be able to guess what it is. Just like something on the tip of your tongue, it's like you know it, but you'll only know it once it's happened, rather than before. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm not looking for an arbitrary split. I'm looking to recognize the situation, which is he doesn't know what it means, but I'm trying to keep him right on the cusp where he's about to know what it means, because I want him to pop to the other side. And what happens is eventually he'll be like I'm getting him to walk right on the edge of this stage, and eventually his conscious mind will misstep, and that's where he gets the insight. You saw it happening right here, right? Did you anticipate? Did you know you're about to get that insight you end up having?
Absolutely not.
It was like a whoa, what just happened there, right? Because I tied up his intellect with the symbols and with the meaning and with the pressure he was getting, until he was forced literally to the edge of his conscious reality, and all it took was one misstep, and he didn't get it all at once, did you? No. Something started, and he went, whoa, what's this? And what I did is, where attention goes, energy flows, I jumped on that and said, more of that. So that's basically saying, okay, you just found the door, go down that, keep walking down that path until you get it, which is exactly what you did, and which is why you could see the dawning realization. It started off with a vagueness somewhere in the back of his mind, but it became more and more real as he continued that, because we put his attention on it. And that's one of the reasons why we left him alone afterwards, so he could finish that without us interfering with him. Does that make sense to you guys? Did you see how it's simple? It's a really simple technique in terms of like technique, and you write it down. But what's in it, right? And this is why this is not something which is teachable per se. This is only something that you find. It's part of who you are and part of who they are. And you just put those two together and you make magic, which means that, by the way, you realize that if I had been doing that with you, you probably had totally different symbols. Because I'm a different person, and the whole nature of the thing would have been different. It doesn't make the end result any different, but it means that the nature of the relationship, the nature of the path that we'll end up taking will be different with each person, and that's part of the magic of what you do. No one can do hypnosis the way that you do. And this is why I keep saying to you guys, these things are just structures, ideas, and they're only as good as your willingness to forget them. Because ultimately, it's you. What you see, what you jump on, what your instincts tell you is good, what your instinct tells you like you need a little bit more of something else. Like the question you asked before, you know already. It's just you don't know you know yet. You know that, don't you? Right? Do you see how that's working? Hopefully you're getting some pennies dropping and some things are clicking in the back of your mind. And the best place to be is when something seems to be clicking but you're not quite sure what it is. Because then you really know you're onto a winner. So go ahead.
Could that evasion, that constant evasion of symbols that he had 4 or 5 times, mean that the unconscious is not ready to handle it?
No, not at all. All the evasion, it's a natural mechanism. If it was something so simple that your unconscious was ready to reveal it straight away, it'd have done it, and you wouldn't need me, right? So the evasion is a natural thing that the unconscious does anyway to keep the information kind of hidden. Now, if you persist, I'm not sure what happens. I honestly do not know what happens. All I know is that if you persist, it's either because your unconscious wants you to put the effort in, maybe, or it could be that the act of persisting changes you in such a way that you can handle the inside now. I honestly don't know what it is. I know that if you do it, that's what happens, what you've seen happening here, but I have no idea why that is. And I defy anyone to say, I know exactly why. We can come up with theories, but I don't think anyone actually knows.
So there's no danger in pursuing that further if the person can't get what that symbol means?
No, because ultimately what will happen is if that person can't psychologically handle it, they won't get there. There'll be too many defenses up. And what will tend to happen is what actually ended up happening here. Do you mind if I share what happened with you guys before? What ended up happening there was you had all these symbols going around, and eventually he went, you know what, this is just getting annoying or tedious or something. I need to come back. I don't want to do this anymore. Right? So if you can't help them allow the symbol to arise in consciousness in such a way that they can resolve it, all that will happen is they'll say, I want to stop now. And that's fine, because that means their unconscious is protecting them from doing something that isn't good for them at that point. So you don't want to brutalize them. When I say you want to persist, put pressure on, it's still, you want to still be sensitive. If you tip them towards something more negative, then you want to ease off, right? You might want to move it in a different direction. You might want to leave something general as saying that symbol, maybe as days and the weeks and the months go by, that symbol will start becoming more and more real and more inside understanding comes your way, that sort of thing. Because you don't want to push them over the edge. You want to push them to the edge and let them decide whether or not they step over. I didn't push you over the edge, did I? But I took you right to it, right? Do you see what I'm getting with this? Your job is never to push someone off the edge, because only they can decide whether or not they jump, stumble, or fall. Your job is taking them right to the edge so that a minimal effort on their part will take them there. Because normally people are thinking, I want to jump, but I don't know if I've got the energy, if I can do it, I'm too far away. Here, all I have to do is just tip, and the rest is nature. Okay, go ahead.
I will share that when you were pushing me, it was uncomfortable, and I was scared that I was going to fail and all that kind of stuff.
Totally understand. That's totally normal. But notice how I didn't push him beyond his ability to tolerate that. Right? That's the key thing. And that's that feeling, I'm going to fail, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm going to show up the instructor. That's part of the whole social pressure thing. That is the defense mechanism. That's the body's defenses, the unconscious defenses coming up saying, okay, here's the reason why you can't get through it. Right? So that's why I need to take him there. I used to think that I'd failed because I'd take people to that point And then they wouldn't go then. I'd go, oh my God, I've messed up. I'm a bad hypnotist. But no, what you've done, here's the thing. And this is crazy, and I really mean this. When you've got there, it means you did exactly the right things. You were standing right on the edge. All it takes is just that little bit extra. Whatever you're doing, you do one more piece. So the only thing you did is you backed off. You took him to the edge and then backed off. That's all. So you took him to where he needs to be. You did the hardest part of the whole work. You took him to the edge. That's the hard part. Now, once in the edge, you just keep him there long enough for him to realize he can step off and it's okay. That's all that needs to happen. And the only mistake, shall we say, that you made, it's not a mistake, you just took the energy away from what was there. That was it. That was really it. So you did the bit that makes this difficult. You did that. Does that make sense? Because the bit which is hard is when they have no symbols, when they're not showing anything, when they won't even, when they'll evade all the pressures, like, no, it's this, or no, it's that, when the conscious intellect interferes way too much. You didn't have any of that. The only thing that happens is, once you get the symbols, once they're standing on that edge, you've got to do that extra little thing to push them off. And to be honest with you, if it hadn't happened with you, it would have happened to someone else. And would you guys have learned anywhere near as much? Would you have learned anywhere near as much if you had been easier as pie and go, oh, I know exactly what it is, and been happy as Larry? It might have felt good, but would you have learned anywhere near as much? So I'd like to actually thank you for having had that experience, purely and simply out of selfish reasons, because that videotape's a lot better now.